You know, some days I wish I could have a vacation in space. Not some days, every day. Hello, interwebs, I hope you're all doing well because I am here to review the latest MCU TV show, the premiere episode of Secret Invasion. Before we get too far in this review, I do want to apologize that I'm not using my nice camera for this review. Just to let you all know, I am moving to a new apartment at the end of this week, so a lot of my stuff is currently in boxes. This is the one room that I've kept looking kind of nice. Everything else is a mess in the other room, so that is why I'm using this camera at the moment. Also, with that being said, I'm just going to forewarn that I will probably not be reviewing next week's episode, and I'll probably double up in 2 weeks and review episodes 2 and 3 of Secret Invasion. Just because I'll probably be still unpacking. I might even still be in the process of moving because I'm moving far away. I have to get a U-Haul and all that jazz over the next few days. So if I don't review next week's episode, that's the reason why. But I will review episode 3 and episode 2 2 weeks from now if I don't get the chance to review this next week. I'm not gonna. If I'm available to do it, I will. If I'm too busy, I'm not gonna stress myself out trying to get it done. So we'll see where we're at next week. But with that said, let's continue on with the review. I didn't realize this, but it's actually been a hot minute since we've got a Marvel TV show. I can't remember even what the last one was, which is kind of shocking because we were getting them at a regular clip for a while there, and now Marvel has started to slow them down, I think because they haven't been as successful as they wanted to, and then also just a bunch of other stuff going on with the MCU right now. And honestly, I'm kind of happy for that. I really do think the MCU needs to slow down generally and just really put a lot of time into each individual project, so hopefully this is a sign that that is going to be the case. And on top of that, I will say I have been very excited for Secret Invasion and also very, very hesitant on it at the same time. I'm kind of in a weird place with this show because on the one hand, conspiracy thrillers are some of my favorite genres of movies and TV shows. I love TV shows like Counterpart, if you ever remember that show, and just really like spy thrillers and stuff like that. Legitimately, just I adore the entire genre. That being said, it is an incredibly problematic genre just on its face, just from its basic concept in a lot of ways, and even more so I am hesitant with this show specifically, given that they were going to use the Skrulls, which in the MCU, which I know is distinct from the comics, the Skrulls are refugees, and so I was really kind of nervous what the show is going to do with that element of it, because, you know, especially in today's America, where refugees are often very vilified, I was kind of trepidatious to see what the show is going to do with that storyline. And I will say this episode did not assuage that fear necessarily. I'm very hesitant to see where it's ultimately going to go with some of the elements that it puts into play in this episode. I should also say, by the way, I'm going to go full spoilers in just a minute, but I'll sort of give a warning when I'm going to hit those points. But that being said, I will kind of reserve judgment because it is hard for me to sort of judge like where their ultimate statement's going to be based on just the first episode of 6. It's kind of like I need to see the complete story, be able to tell that. But judging by some of the politics of other Marvel projects that were also dealing in like heavy political theming, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I am hesitant because I did not like the sort of politics of Falcon and the Winter Soldier either, in the sense of it was just sort of like, hey, look, the revolutionary group that's actually fighting for the rights, they're just really bad people, and you know, it's just going to take Captain America to tell the senators to do better, because of course the senators will totally do better. Very like sort of stuff with that show. So I'm hoping this series can do better, but Marvel has not necessarily given me that I haven't earned that trust from Marvel yet on my part. So I'm hesitant on that front, because what we do ultimately learn, and I'll start getting into more spoilers here, is that we are dealing with a sort of splinter group of Skrulls that have sort of formed and want to sort of, fight back and claim Earth for themselves and kill all the humans, essentially. Commit a genocide, basically, to be able to get the planet for themselves, because they are sort of tired of having waited around. And that on its face, I'm like, oh man, I do not like this sort of like radicalized refugees willing to commit a whole genocide storyline. Like, that's kind of messed up on its face. And that's not my favorite thing, but again, I will save judgment for now. That being said, I will focus more on the smaller scale stuff with this episode. First and foremost, Nick Fury is fantastic. I really adored Samuel L. Jackson's performance here. We haven't really seen much of him in the MCU over the past years. I think the last thing we saw him in was Spider-Man Far From Home, right? Yeah, Far From Home. And even then he was technically just Talos, so we only got to see the real Nick Fury right at the end in the after credits sequence. So I like that the show is sort of bringing him back and kind of doing something with that element of him having been away, and we haven't gotten much of him post-snap. And it's basically just been literally he's just checked out of everything because he sort of felt like he failed with the snap. Sort of kind of doing like a similar arc to Thor, just taking it his sort of sadness and sort of trauma from that, some in a different direction than Thor did, in a less problematic way than Thor's depiction was in Endgame. And I really like it. I really like seeing everyone sort of like kind of feeling like hurt by Nick Fury, like Talos and Colby Smulders' character feeling like they're out of step with him. I did enjoy that, and Nick Fury Samuel L. Jackson is playing it pretty well. The other thing I really loved is I love Talos. Well, again, I have problems with certain elements of the Skrull storyline. Talos' relationship with Nick Fury and his conflicted loyalties to a degree. Like, he's still on Nick Fury's side. He wants to stop genocide. So good. But he doesn't want to kill anybody. Like, that's an interesting storyline. I like seeing his friendship with Nick Fury. They're back and forth, but then Nick killing the one Skrull and him kind of getting upset about it. So I'm curious to see how that's going to go further, because their back and forth is really excellent. That being said, I am kind of annoyed at the show doing kind of the typical thing that they often do, which is killed off Talos' girlfriend, mostly because they probably didn't get the actor back. They didn't want to pay for her. So they're like, oh, we'll kill her, and then we'll introduce this daughter that we've never seen because we don't have Emilia Clarke. And I'm like, I hate, it's not really fridging the wife, because fridging the wife is kind of like motivating the plot line, and Talos' characters isn't really motivated by fridging the wife being dead. But it is this sort of like callous disregard of women characters that you sometimes see in these shows. And especially since like you were dealing with shapeshifters, you didn't need to introduce Emilia Clarke's character as his daughter. You could have introduced her as like his wife who just took a different form or something if you couldn't get the actress back. It's one of those things where it's like not the end of the world, but I don't love that bit of it, but there you go. We also got to meet I'm trying to remember her name, Gravik. She seems to be playing a sort of antagonistic character to Nick Fury, where she sort of goes too far and is willing to also kill Skrulls back, which is an interesting dichotomy, because at least it will provide an element of like, at least we can see that the good guy's side, quote unquote, is also going to go too far. But again, that ends up possibly ending up leading to the storyline of just a few bad apples storyline that we can end up here. And it's like, oh, well, the Nick Fury's the good one. And I'm like, but if it's still systemic harm that you're just putting on individuals, that's a problem. But again, that's an MCU thing. So it's like one of those, like, this is the problem that I get into when I talk about MCU projects that get very, very political, because they sort of fit into this larger MCU machine. I am very hesitant on MCU dealing with very didactic politics in a way that, I wouldn't be in a show that was very similar, but was dealing with less franchise standards. I think the only show that was in like a huge franchise that I thought like got its politics right was Andor, which again, made by Disney. So who knows? Maybe the show will end up being that way, but knowing my feelings on the MCU, not entirely sure on that front. That being said, I am enjoying the conspiracy thriller aspect of it. I'm curious to see more of the Skrull society that we got to see here. We see them sort of being like, oh, we like to sort of, keep our culture going here in this little compound that we got, and that sort of be compared with Talos, who's sort of like just having to like have his plant grow and is hoping it will accommodate to Earth, and sort of this metaphor about like assimilation or not. Again, I am curious to see where those themes, grow over the next few episodes. So there's some interesting things that could be said. We'll see where it goes. Again, the more I talk it out, the more I'm like very hesitant on this series politics. The last thing that I kind of weirdly want to mention, just because I have it in my notes here, Martin Freeman, by the way, was great. So that I just had that as a note. Like, I always enjoy Martin Freeman. And seeing him be a Skrull sort of set that up nicely. But I will also say the opening credits are interesting because they look like they were made by AI. And I'm of two minds of that, because, I am not someone who's like, AI is going to be the death of us all, that sort of stuff. But I am on the train of, do not use AI art when you could have hired an actual artist to do your work. That being said, I don't know. Maybe this was actually done by an actual artist and it just looks like AI, and that's what I hope Marvel did. Don't trust Disney on that, though, so I'd have to look into it. But also, on the other hand, the AI art look works for this series, just given the, uncanny valley, shapeshifter sort of stuff. So I have, multiple thoughts on that, where it's I hope they hired an actual artist to do that opening credits and just said, make it look like AI art. That's what I would much prefer to do. When you have Disney money, you don't need to cut corners, and Marvel money, too. But also, that being said, it does fit the series as well. So, I just hope that it was the best way for this to be done was they hired an actual artist, a human being, to make something that looked like AI. That's what I hope they did. I'd have to look into it. But it does fit the vibe of the show very well, even disregarding the sort of real world aspects of it. And then the final thing is we end with Colby Smolder's character getting shot, which is interesting. I'm actually kind of shocked that they're going to kill her character off. Not that she was a big character in the MCU, but she was a connective tissue character that Nick Fury was. And especially since I get the vibe that maybe Samuel L. Jackson can keep going in the MCU, but I feel like he's going to have to step away at some point in the future. And there's this, and I think the next Marvel, Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel movie that they got, the Marvels, Monica Rambeau as well. That will be his swan song, or close to, would be my assumption. So what I would have thought that they would have kept Colby Smulders around because she would be a character that would stick around longer. So I was sort of oh wow, that's an impactful way to end the show, because I would not have expected her character. She's a character that's been around for a while, so I have some emotional investment in her. It's a strong start, and we are dealing with shapeshifters, so who knows, maybe she's still alive or something like that. Also, Marvel crap can always bring characters back, but it was a strong start to the series overall. So yeah, I think to wrap out my thoughts on this, I'm enjoying it on its own individual level, enjoying just the story beats here, and as we go through in the character development. But I am very, very nervous, given Marvel's history with these sort of topics, and also some of the setup in this episode of where the ultimate theming and storyline is going to go on a sort of a macro level with this show, because Marvel has definitely not earned my trust on that level. So we'll see where it goes. But what did you think of this episode of Secret Invasion? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Send me some love for my move that I'm going to be doing, because it'll be an interesting next few days. And also, don't forget, by the way, I might not be reviewing the episode next week, so just keep that in mind. But beyond all of that, I hope you all, my friends, live long and prosper.